Molly, you've just got back from New Zealand, right?
Sure,
You're
yeah.
playing some shows there?
Yeah, I was. I was home for 2.5 months, and I did some recording, and I did 2 shows,
Yeah.
3 shows.
What's the scene like there?
It's actually awesome. It's one of the reasons that I make sure I go back for a couple months every year. It's very music for music's sake, is how I would describe it. Like all the bands kind of just make what they love with no intention of like getting big or getting famous or like making it their career, which is kind of how it seems here sometimes.
Yeah.
And I think what comes out of that is just like really incredible and interesting new music.
Are there any particular bands that you really kind of like hold dear to your heart from back home?
Yeah, for sure. There's a band called Saltwater Criminals. So cool. Awning is like awesome. Marlin's Dreaming is like one of my favorites. Daffodils. There's like lots of just incredible new bands who are really doing it for the right reasons.
And you were there celebrating your debut.
I was.
So YOYOTTA?
YOYOTTA, yeah.
Isn't that right?
It is a made-up word though.
Yeah.
So don't.
Oh, I was going to say, what's the story behind the album title?
It's an acronym for You're on Your Own This Time Again, which is the kind of the title track. But I thought it might be a bit too wordy, so I shortened it.
Yeah. And what's kind of the story behind like the branding of the album? There's a lot of horses going on.
There is. I think I really wanted to have something like an image that when people saw it after the album came out, that would make them think of that. Like I wanted to have something that ran across all the visuals and like all the merch and just like something really consistent. And I think the horse was introduced when we shot the music video for Asphalt, which was the first single. And I think within that it was kind of a visual symbol for freedom and all those sorts of good things. So I felt like that was a good symbol for the album.
You say about like the symbol for freedom. Do you think that's how you felt when you went into making the album? Obviously this was an independent release. You were kind of making it on your own with your friends. Like, did that kind of come through in how you felt about it?
For sure. At the time I would describe it as very scary. But obviously now that I've made the album and I'm looking back at it, that is exactly what it was for me. It was I'd been dropped and I thought that my career was over, and it was like the most scary time of my life. And I was also going through a lot of like personal upheaval, and I just moved home to New Zealand for a year and felt like the world was burning down a little bit. And I just ended up making this really fun record just for me, and I think it kind of showed me how I wanted to make music going forward. And it's really set me up in a good way.
When you came to making the album, were you like 100% sure that you were making an album, or did it just kind of happen, or what were the first steps into it?
My friend Oscar Lang, who's an incredible musician in his own right, was going through a breakup at the time, and he decided he wanted to get out of the UK. So he came to visit me for a month while I was going through all of that. And he was the one that was kind of like, we should just make something just because it's fun to do, and you should be reminded of that. And we did it in like friends' bedrooms and in my mum's living room, and like all really cheap because I had no money. And I think I'd never made something long form before, and it just felt natural to give it a go, and that's what it ended up being.
Yeah. What song came first?
I think most of it was written around that time, but there was the title track, You're on Your Own This Time Again, I wrote a little earlier, or kind of in bits over a couple of years. It was a song, the lyrics I wrote firstly when my dad went to prison when I was 18, and I went to visit him for the first time, and I kept that kind of a secret from like outside of my music and stuff. And then I revisited those lyrics like probably a couple of years later with a friend, and when that song that kind of came out and was finished, that was when Oscar came to visit. So it was kind of like, I guess it kind of got the ball rolling in terms of what I wanted to write about and deal with.
Strange how like something you write for yourself at a certain time in your life like comes back at another time in your life with like a different context, because I imagine when you were then approaching the album as like a newly independent artist, having a song saying you're on your own again this time, kid, is like very apt for this situation.
The context can change a song so much. Like now, like I've gone through my first breakup post all of this, and like obviously the song has this whole new meaning that can apply to that as well, and that's such a nice thing. My favorite thing that I learned from making the album actually was that you should revisit ideas and keep working on things and keep trying them again and again, because that song I kind of had abandoned and thought was shit, and like, sorry, I don't know if I can say that. I thought it was like bad, and I didn't think I'd ever finish it. And now the new record that I'm making is actually like almost half ideas that I'd kind of scrapped. And now that I've picked them up with a couple more years behind me and a bit more experience, I've turned them into like my favorite songs ever. You know,
Yeah.
It was a good lesson for me.
And what was the last song you wrote for the album?
Yeah, it was probably Accelerate, because I listened through the record, and the one thing about that kind of part of my life, that time that I hadn't felt like I'd captured, was the crazy fun, like, I don't know, thing that comes along with suddenly being unemployed and like your life burning down. You know, obviously you kind of go out a bit more and you're a bit crazy. And I think I kind of wrote that song to bring that energy into the album a little bit.
In contrast to like your older EPs, the album feels a lot more like rocky and like leaning further into kind of band music, I guess. Do you think you felt that as like a difference in the music that was like inspiring you, or kind of what were you listening to at the time, or who were some artists that like have always kind of inspired you?
I'd actually say I've released 4 projects before this. My second one, Porcupine, and then my fourth one, Slack, both actually had like some really heavy moments in them. I think I've always kind of floated between like folk and alternative rock, and like kind of tried and failed a lot of times to marry those things. I think my pursuit has always been to do that, and I came close on this record.
I would say you nailed it.
It's not quite what I wanted to do. The one I'm making now is the first time I'm working with like 2 young rock artists from New Zealand. Ruben Scott, who is Saltwater Criminals, and then Tom Verburn. They're both like have some of the best sounding like heavy rock music that I've had, and I've kind of brought them in to give that to me, and then I'm bringing obviously the more folk songwriting element in. But my influences have stayed consistent. It's like lots of Big Thief, always Big Thief. Adrian Lenker is like my favorite songwriter ever. And like Smashing Pumpkins is like a big one for me. MJ Lenderman's a good reference, I think, for my new stuff. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't really answer your question.
Oh, that was good. Do you think, like, you say it kind of already starting like a new project, do you think it's kind of only when you reach the end of something that you can understand it a bit more? Like, do you think you have more of a like retrospective understanding of your debut and kind of what it's about and the lessons learned to like move forward?
Yeah,
something new now.
Absolutely. I also have great managers, which I think is so important for any musician, who have really actually sat down with me and been like, where do you think your shortcomings were? Like, which is obviously a tough conversation to have sometimes, and I didn't take it very well the first time, story goes. But yeah, having people who can sit down and be like, do you think your songwriting can be better? Like, what are you trying to say with this? Like, as I bring new songs to the table, I think that's been really, really, really good for me and kind of pushed me forward as an artist.
And when you're like looking forward, kind of looking towards the next album and the next 10, 20, however many years, like who do you think is someone whose career you're like, yeah, that is like a blueprint for the kind of career that you want to move forward and have?
Palace, a UK band. Leo Wyndham, the singer, has been kind of very instrumental in me from my career from like the beginning. Like he, my first ever gig was one that he put on at the George Tavern when I was 17. And then we did songwriting for a while, and he just essentially coached me and like was a kind of helping hand throughout the beginning of my career and later on as well. And their career has just been so slow, but their fans are just, they care so much about the music, and now they sell out shows wherever they go. Like they did an Australia, New Zealand tour where I opened for them, and every night the room was just sold out, packed. Like everyone knew all the words. Like there was no one talking over. Like it was like if I could have anything, it would be like a long career where I improve constantly, and the people who come to my gigs are, you know, they care and they're connected to the music. Like that's what you can ever hope for, I think.
Yeah. So I feel like we talk a lot, or like we hear a lot of conversation about like labels wanting to get like big viral moments and like people kind of blowing up super quick and then kind of like falling from grace super quick, where like you say, kind of surely the dream career is a long and enduring one that you're allowed to like evolve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I think we were talking about this before, but I think social media is such a funny one because you can, like you say, you can have like this huge success and have one of the biggest videos in the world, but that doesn't mean that those people who watch your video for 20 seconds want to buy a ticket to your show, like buy your merch, listen to your next song, your next project. Like it's such a shallow form of success, and it's so hard for people to convert that into. I've experienced it in like a kind of small way. I had a song that got kind of big on TikTok, not huge, but like big enough that I now have to play it for the rest of my life. But yeah, it just doesn't really mean anything in terms of a career. And I think that's what I really struggled with making YOYOTTA, is I just realized that it doesn't mean suddenly that it's going to be easy for you to make your music. Like it doesn't mean you're going to have the money, or like, yeah, it's tough. And I think more time and care needs to get put into helping artists build sustainable and I don't know, happy careers, you know, rather than exciting quick ones.
Yeah. It's like there's really something to be said for like being respected over being like popular.
Yeah.
I guess like you think about someone like Patti Smith, like she can walk down the street without people swarming her, but chances are if she does have an interaction with someone, it's like a
meaningful
one. Yeah. And like you say about Palace, where like you go to their gigs and no one's talking over them, like yeah, surely that seems like kind of the dream over not being able to like go to Tesco without like for sure screaming in your face.
Yeah, I think my mum and I had a conversation about it when I was feeling a bit low, where she was saying that, you know, labels and the industry in general, not just labels, and labels aren't the enemy, but the industry in general, like it doesn't matter to them if artists, you know, have a long career. It works for them if an artist like has one big song and it doesn't work for them after that. They've still like clipped the ticket and they can still carry on, you know. We as musicians and writers and people who care about music have to be the ones to show up for the next show and like, I don't know, just be there for an artist and buy the merch and do the things. Because I don't think the change is going to come from the industry itself, unfortunately.
Yeah. And then kind of allowing yourself that kind of grace and taking that forward into your career. Like, how do you come to approach a second album? Like, how's it going so far? What's kind of inspiring you making it?
Just trying to remember all these things that I'm saying. Remembering that the point is to do something better and like improve as an artist. Put the time in and treat it like a job, which is not something I would say a year ago, but like do it every day, like write every day, play every day, like try and get better, like in the most like basic way possible, and just enjoy it and do it with people that you love, you know. So cheesy. Jeez. But it's, honestly, like the best stuff will always come out of that approach.
Yeah, I like it's a very like Leonard Cohen approach.
I love that man.
Yeah.
Don't even get me started.
Molly Payton, the Leonard Cohen.
Okay, don't say that because people listen to my music from when I was 16 and be like, "What the fuck? What are they talking about?"
Everyone's like, "Welcome back, Leonard Cohen."
No, yeah, it sucks because like obviously when you go on streaming platforms, like the first music you hear will always be like my stuff from when I was 17, 18, just because it's the TikTok songs. So I do all these interviews and I'm like, I'm working so hard, and then people go on and hear my shitty like teenage stupid songs.
Yeah. Does it feel like reading back your diary from
Yeah, it is a little
teenager?
bit. And I think at least I was like honest, even if
Mm.
some of them are a little bit like, I'd written differently now.
Yeah.
I think people connected to them because like other 16-year-olds also felt like the world was ending when a boy didn't like them back,
Yeah.
you know?
We've all been there.
Yeah, still like that actually.